global sustainability standards fall short of expectations. In the past decade and a half, there has been an increase in the number of mandatory and voluntary environmental, social and corporate governance standards around the world.
To date, there are over 650 sustainable finance regulations globally, with each potentially having a specific understanding of what sustainability means.
The attendant effect of these different requirements are significant variations in the assessment of a company's ESG performance. To reduce risks and financial costs, most companies generally disclose the easiest indicators and/or change rating systems, rather than provide information that is more time-consuming, costly to produce, and potentially negative to their reputation.
The lack of consensus over what reporting information is required, and comparability across jurisdictions, a global harmonization of sustainability reporting standards led by the International Financial Reporting Standards Foundation is a watershed moment.
The IFRS has proposed to launch a new sustainability standards board, to develop and maintain a global set of sustainability reporting standards.
Yet, the current geopolitical ecology and headwinds and risks that this project is subjected to, suggests that a global harmonization of sustainability reporting standards could end up being watered down and falling short of expectations. Jurisdictions are at different levels of acceptance and approaches when it comes to sustainability reporting regulation, which has a major impact for developing a global standard.
This is aptly demonstrable in terms of diverging approaches to materiality and double materiality. In the US, materiality has long been a legal and regulatory feature. Since the 1940s, the US has defined material information as matters which an average prudent investor ought reasonably to be informed before purchasing the security registered.
The American definition of materiality faces significant pressures from key global actors, most prominently the European Union, who has introduced the concept of double materiality.
Double materiality recognizes that a company should factor and report on two aspects. First, its impact inwards. That is, sustainability topics that influence enterprise value. And second, its impact outwards. That is, sustainability topics with broader influence on the economy, environment and people.
Given the varying approaches to materiality between USA and the EU, it should not be surprising that there are diverging requirements and priorities between both entities when it comes to how materiality should be factored into sustainability disclosures. This is acutely the result of differences in governance, legal traditions and the balancing of domestic interests.
On the one hand, the United States has traditionally relied on a principles-based approach and business-led behavior. On the other hand, the EU generally emphasizes regulatory measures to enforce materiality considerations. This is consistent with its stated institutional priorities and past jurisprudence. A global sustainability reporting standard will have to balance the inherent tensions between both diverging epistemologies. Notwithstanding variations in understandings of materiality, the potential for adopting a global sustainability reporting standard with the IFRS at the helm is still strong. The IFRS has wisely undertaken a building blocks approach.
It will provide a global sustainability reporting baseline that would allow for greater comparability and consistency of application across standards. It will provide flexibility for coordination on additional jurisdictional reporting requirements.
This building blocks approach is attractive for engineering baseline support. There are over 140+ jurisdictions using the IFRS accounting standards, making it more than likely that the majority of these jurisdictions will endorse and require companies to use the new ESG standards as a baseline.
While it took almost 15 years to develop a set of IFRS accounting standards, and another decade for major jurisdictions to implement the standards, the pace for adopting the SSB standards is likely to be much quicker given the building blocks approach.
Already, major regulators have supported the development of a global ESG reporting framework, and the creation of the SSB.
The IFRS efforts are reinforced by major actors such as the United Nations, G20 finance ministers, World Economic Forum and the International Organization of Securities Commissions.
They have agreed that there should be a globally consistent and comparable set of high-quality standards for sustainability-related reporting.
Support is further echoed by major business associations and global investment firms, which see a single global standard as a mechanism for investors to make more informed decisions about how to achieve durable long-term returns.
On a diverging path, the European Commission has acknowledged fragmentation in reporting standards, but nevertheless, will issue their own standard-setting mandate for the European Financial Reporting Advisory Group.
EFRAG has proposed that the EU participate in global convergence efforts on a co-construction basis. The goal is to foster coherence and consistency between the EU and the SSB standards. This suggests that the EU may use SSB reporting as a supplement.
There are a few identifiable headwinds and risks when it comes to setting up a global harmonization of sustainability reporting standards.
First, there is a risk that the proposed SSB global reporting standard will embrace a least common denominator principle that accepts a trade-off between increasing geographical coverage and reduced quality of standards.
Albeit in the process, the SSB's approach can foster a minimum standard and create space for meaningful future variations and innovations.
Second, not all sustainability issues will fall into the remit of the SSB. Irrespective of the building blocks approach, the SSB will ultimately serve the needs of investors.
In fact, the IFRS, as conceived, is set up to deliver transparent information to capital markets. But, not all sustainability issues are relevant to investors, and what is relevant varies by industry.
As a consequence, it is plausible that two or more sets of global and/or regional standards emerge servicing different audiences.
The first standard will service the needs of the company's shareholders and investors.
The second standard will cover a range of sustainability issues that matter to society at large.
This scenario is supported by the idea that methodologically it is a difficult proposition to develop a single global standard.
A regional standard, aligning similar norms, values, policy and governance philosophies, and wider organizational ecological realities, could potentially be a more pragmatic approach. Bilateral or multilateral cooperative agreements between jurisdictions could also be an alternative. A good example of this is the EU and China Green Investment Initiative.
Finally, emerging market jurisdictions will have to navigate potential foreign policy aspirations and balance economic development goals when it comes to adopting global sustainability reporting standards.
The case of China is instructive. ESG investing has a strong potential to be a factor in Chinese outward-looking policies and practices. Therefore, it will not be in the strategic interest of China to fully endorse a global sustainability standard.
Rather, China will develop its own set of standards. One which, akin to the EU, could have complementary qualities to the SSB proposal. The IFRS SSB Global Sustainability Reporting Standard will be more readily equipped to meet environmental objectives, which by their nature, are generally more global in scope.
Over 190 jurisdictions have committed to the 2016 Paris Agreement, and have imposed, or working towards, stricter regulations to curb greenhouse gas emissions and pollution. This is coupled with actively promoting renewable energy through subsidies.
Yet, environmental performance information remains insufficient, and will require greater environmental risk information statistics and data disclosures to meet the growing demands of investors and civil society actors.
Jurisdictions' commitments to social factors are a mixed bag. For example, engaging in measuring human rights standards can be controversial, value-laden and can be easily politicalized.
Including a rights-based approach to the global sustainability reporting ecosystem will accompany similar strengths and tensions within the broader rights-based discourse. There are presently variations amongst global jurisdictions on the ordering of priorities for political and civil rights versus social and economic rights. A global sustainability reporting standard will not be fully effective unless there is clarity here. When it comes to the corporate governance factors, many listed companies in emerging markets have an opaque and often confusing ownership structure where investor voting rights have little to no weight.
In China, for example, there is a concentrated ownership structure, and potential conflicts of interest between majority/minority shareholders remain a core corporate governance issue. Furthermore, transparency is another issue. ESG rating agencies regularly operate with outdated information, and thus, having inaccurate data for firms are often a reality.
A fully functional global standard will have to embrace various public-private institutional configurations, structures and relationships, which will be a tall order.